My name's Alan Stokes. I'm Director of Environmental Programs on the Pork Checkoff staff, and I'm serving as moderator for this particular session. Title of this session is 3 Essential Steps to Avoid Health, Safety, and Environmental Disaster. Our presenter will be Karen Hoare, who is the Director of Producer Learning and Development on the Checkoff staff. She has a broad breadth of experience in the pork industry. And is really the leader in leading the efforts on our education components as it relates to producer education. So, Karen?
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming in here. I'm hoping that it's not because it's getting sickly hot outside and you just wanted to sit in the air conditioning. You never know when you have a safety in the title of a presentation as to whether people are actually going to show up or not, because some people have not much interest in safety training, but we're going to talk a little bit today about some safety and environmental training and some steps that you can take to prevent a safety disaster. One of the things that Alan didn't share with you from my bio was the reason that I do safety at the Pork Board is because I have a production background and I have had 2 injuries in my time in production. So I kind of see safety as a very important aspect, and I can see it from both perspectives, not just from the management perspective, but also because I do stupid things too, like other people. So hopefully that's helped me make some tools that are going to be useful to you guys. So when I talk about a disaster, an environmental and safety and health disasters, we all have a different idea what that might be, and there are different levels of disaster. Now, we could, and that's not a lagoon spill, I didn't want to put that up there, but we could potentially have something as serious as a manure or lagoon spill that really does have a huge impact, environmental impact on the whole area. Or we could just have something simple like nuisance odors that cause a problem with neighbors. There are things we have to think about that can have a big impact on your facility and on the neighborhood and on the industry. And of course, when we think about health disasters or injuries, obviously the worst case scenario is that we have fatality. But even if we have just minor injuries or relatively minor injuries, it can have a huge impact on not just the farm operation, but also for the family that's involved with that person who's had an incident. And it could be a long-term injury that affects someone for the rest of their life, in fact. So we have to be, that level of disaster could be huge, or it could be just a small, but it could be a disaster for somebody. So I wanted to talk to you, as it said, about 3 steps and ways that we can help prevent those disasters happening. And they're simple things. It doesn't take too much if we do the right thing. The first step is to actually care, to actually want to prevent an environmental disaster, to actually want to keep your staff healthy and safe at work. It's very important to care initially. And then, of course, training, making sure they understand what they need to be doing in both environmentally and in terms of health and safety. And then thinking about your culture. So once you've trained them, are they allowed to do the right thing, or do you push them to do something different? So we're going to look at all those 3 steps. Some will take longer than others. So the first step, then, is to care. And, of course, we as pork producers, we have an ethical responsibility to commit to these principles. Everyone has heard of the We Care program, I hope, in this room. Please don't shake your head. Anybody know? Okay, good. Good. So the We Care principles, the 6 principles, include the environment, include caring for the environment, and include caring for our workers and workplace safety. So it's the first step, but it's an important step, and we all really commit to following those principles. Anyone who works in the pork supply chain should be committing to these principles. It's a very simple step, but if you don't care to start with, you're not going to go anywhere. It's not going to work. So very simple. As I highlighted there, so we've committed to safeguard our natural resources, and to provide a work environment that's safe and consistent with our other ethical principles, so keeping our workforce safe. The second step, that was a quick step, the second step is to train. This takes a little bit longer, it's a little bit harder. training our employees in all aspects of what they do is extremely important. We can't just put people out there and hope they're going to do the right thing. It improves professionalism, helps our employees reach their potential, improves production performance, and is an investment in people. That's just basic training. But then if you think about safety and environmental training, you've also got to think about some other things. There is a legal requirement for you to do some training. OSHA requires that your employees understand the hazards in their workplace and are prepared and can avoid those hazards. We also want to prevent injuries. Injuries cost time, they cost money, there's a lot of direct costs, and there are a lot of indirect costs. It has an impact not only on the employee, but it has an impact, again, on their families, but also other employees as well. When you have someone injured, they take time off work, other people have to take up that extra slack. And then, of course, it improves your safety culture. If you train people, they think about safety, they're aware of the issues and the hazards, and they think about it every day, it can improve that safety culture. And then, of course, if you communicate with your employees and talk to them, it opens that line of communication up so you can help understand what their issues are, and it should be a two-way conversation when you're doing that training. So we have some tools at the National Pork Board that will help you with that training, especially smaller producers. I know it's hard and expensive to put together training tools, so we've kind of done some of that for you, and we hope that you can use some of these tools. Obviously, they're I would say free, but a producer told me off for the other day for calling them free because you do pay the check-off, so it's certainly not free. But that we hope to use that check-off money responsibly when you produce these tools that are available to you. So we have our Safe Pig Handling tool. We have a newly launched, actually launched this week, our newly launched Employee Safety Toolkit. And then for the environmental sustainability, we have a new tool that will be available very shortly, probably the end of August, we're hoping. That will be very similar, but we'll talk about environmental issues as well, some skills for environmental awareness. So I'm going to talk through about each of these tools just very quickly, just to let you know what's available and that. So we talk about safety particularly. We have not a great reputation in terms of employee injuries. So in 2014, the Bureau of Labor Statistics gave us an injury and illness rate of 9, which, if you don't know, means that for every 100 employees, 9 had an injury or illness on the job, a workplace injury or illness. And that's high. That's one of the higher ones. We're up there. It's not good. And like I say up there, it's 2.8 times construction and 1.6 times crop production. Most people think of construction as being a particularly dangerous injury to work in, but hog production is, certainly for 2014, was pretty bad. So we have opportunity. We certainly have the opportunity to help our employees stay safe. And of course, as you're aware, this does not include farms that have less than 10 employees. This is 10 plus employees that's recorded. So the number potentially is higher if we were to include those smaller farms. So the Safe Pig Handling tool, has anyone heard of this, used this? Thank you, Diane. Anyone else using the Safe Pig Handling tool? Aware of that one? So this thank you. So this came out a couple of years ago, 2014 at the Expo there. It's available in 2 formats. It's available on a flash drive, like that. And it's also available online now. It's just recently been put online at pork.org, as you can see down there. The Safe Pig Handling tool focuses on working around animals. So it starts with the premise of how animals behave, or how pigs behave, where that comes from, their instincts. And then it develops into how we can handle the animal and how we can use those instincts to move the animal better. So it works on both for keeping people safe, but it also works on an animal welfare perspective too, on an animal welfare level too. So it's a very good tool. We've had some very good feedback. A lot of people are using this tool for training. It's broken down into chunks, so you can use the training tool or the information that's relevant to your situation. So whether it's wean to finish, or it's finishing, or loading pigs, or moving breeding sows, that it's in there in a small chunk. They haven't got to sit through hours of training. So if you haven't heard of that one, I would highly recommend it. The second one, I'm going to talk into a little bit more detail. This is our employee safety toolkit. So many years ago, 2001 or 2003, somewhere around that time, the Pork Board produced a pork production safety system. And that's been available for quite a long time. When it was put together, it really didn't meet the needs, the training needs of the employee. It really focused on the HR aspect, and there's a lot of written content to it, a lot of text. There's a big binder. If you print it all out, it's about this thick, and it's quite intimidating to use that. There's information in there about how to report to OSHA, about how to set up a safety committee, a lot of in-depth information about the background to a safety program. And it really wasn't very effective at training employees. There is a piece to it that includes some video and some training topics, but a lot of that was just like a talking head video, really. There's a guy who's in the video who I think if I met him, I'd go and hug him, but he wouldn't have a clue who I was. But I've seen him so many times, I feel like I know the guy. But and really it was irrelevant to the training. It was just like sitting in a lecture for the most part. There were little bits of farm video, but mostly sat in a lecture type video. So we felt it was time to revise that. And like I said, we had a lot of good feedback from the safe pig handling. So it made sense to follow the same format. So the new safe pig handling, the new employee safety toolkit, revised safety toolkit, has followed those same guidelines. So some keys to success included making sure it was relevant to the low literacy levels and the English language learners that we have in a lot of barns. It's the barn worker who gets injured. It's the barn worker who needs to understand what they need to be doing. It's the barn worker we need to be communicating with effectively. So we've made it very highly visual, lots of photos and videos, lots of repetition. So the same thing said a few times, just to make sure it goes in if they miss it the first time. Lots of hands-on practice, the opportunity to do something practical, not just sit in front of a screen. We use simple text and narration. The text on the screen is just a few words, and then narration, as simple language as we can make it. And then it reflects in barn realities. We didn't go to a barn that was perfect. We didn't go to a brand new barn to take photos, because most employees in reality don't work in that environment. It's dusty, it's dirty, and it's not perfect. So we didn't go to that. We went to that type of barn that people are going to relate to a little bit better. We also tried to make it relevant or more useful to the manager or supervisor who is going to be doing the training. It's ready to use. So it's available online. If you go to pork.org, you can find it online. In fact, if you go to our booth here in the VI building today, you can sign up and get access to it today. And it's available there. So it's ready and easy to use, very simple format. Bite-sized learning. So if a farm manager hasn't got to pull someone out for 2 hours at a time to talk about safety. It's chunks, so there are lots of 5-minute videos. You can do 5-minute video after lunch. And it's done. It's a reminder or it's training, and you can work through however you want to use it. Again, flexible for the different environments as well. We have PowerPoints, video, computer-based training, different formats that you can use depending on what you have available and what you can use in the barn. And again, organized for easy planning of training. So these are the topics that are included. We've broken it down into 6 units, again, to make it easier to use, a bit more organized. 21 topics that cover everything except the safe pig handling part of it. So this is all the other stuff, the OSHA stuff, the slip, strips and falls, zoonoses, power washing, all that kind of good stuff. Covers everything else. Each unit, so each of those 6 units has a poster that can be used for daily reminders. They're printable on the farm, so they're not big posters that you have to expensive to have made up. They're just something you print out, laminate, and stick on a barn wall or a bathroom wall, just to remind people what they need to be doing. We've started out with 6. As we go forward, we'll probably add to that, but we just felt these were the 6 most relevant to start with. There's a flip book, and I'm getting some really good feedback about the flip book. This is just a one-pager of each of those topics. Again, as you can see there, it's very, very visual, lots of photos, just a quick reminder. So it's for just-in-time learning. So if someone is doing something they shouldn't be, or you see an unsafe act or behavior, you can pull someone in and say, do you remember this? Can you remember your training? Let's have a look at what we've just seen and what you should be doing. If you laminate a copy of all of the pages, it's a great tool to have on a break room table, so that at lunchtime they can flip through it. It's not like a manual you have to read through and look at each topic. It's just a quick reminder. Again, we've had some good feedback on that one so far. We also have computer-based training. So for an individual, a new employee, for example, you can sit them down in front of a computer and they can work through the video on their own, and then they can take a short knowledge test at the end on the computer. We also have video. We have the same content, but in a video format that can be used full screen for a group training session. So again, depending on who you're training and how you're training, you're going to get the same message across with that information. So it's going to be a consistent message. The knowledge check and skill check are very quick and easy to do. It's not a test. It's not something you particularly want to keep as a reference that they know something. It's really just a case to say that they have been through the training and understood the key concept. It's a simple question. Again, visual, photos, circle the do's and don'ts, that type of thing, varying to each topic. So very, very simple. And it's the same question as it is online. And that's printable if you want to print it out and do it hands-on, if that's preferable. The skill check, we felt like there needed to be something in there, again, to make it practical. You know, we're training safety in a farm environment, and people are actually going to be doing this stuff, not just watching videos about it. So we have, for hearing, for example, the hearing skill check is putting in earplugs. And again, if you want you as a manager, you can just watch an employee make sure they put in earplugs properly. And you'd be surprised how many people don't know how to do that properly. So it's a good reminder and a good simple skill check that we forget about. Of course, there's the inevitable PowerPoint presentation. We have to have one of those. The narration for the video is printed out on a facilitator guide. I didn't put it in there. So if a manager doesn't know the content particularly well, the worst case scenario, they can stand in front of a PowerPoint presentation and can read the narration from the video, and it'll give them consistent information that was in the video. The PowerPoint presentations are completely available for you to adapt. If you have protocols, procedures that are specific to your company or to your farm, you can change those PowerPoint presentations to make it relevant. Questions at this point, comments about the Employee Safety Toolkit? Any thoughts? Okay, thank you, Craig.
Does the training and stuff, is there a database that checks off who's done and who's not?
No, we've not. No, we've not. We've made a decision not to hold that information. It gets very complicated for us at the National Report Board if we start to put databases together. For the PQA, it's a little bit different, but for other training, it's kind of hard for us to keep that information, especially as we get forward and all that kind of good stuff as well. So, yeah, we made that decision. So, but you could put this into an LMS learning system if you have that availability and have access to that type of tracking. Yeah.
Is this a user login?
So to access most of the Port Board tools, you just have to register. It's a very simple process. Just put your name in, you'll get a password, and it's access. We just want to, we don't do anything with that information. It's just yeah. And if you don't like that, you are welcome to have a flash drive. Well, I have a few. We're only making 250 of the flash drives. We're not putting it out generally as a flash drive. So, but if you really want one, I'll give you a flash drive. That'll be fine. Sure. So this is available now. You can have it in a flash drive or go ahead and sign up on pork.org. But it doesn't have to be finished. If you find things that don't work for you, if you find things that you think we need to be changing, please let me know. Don't feel like this has to be it and it doesn't work for you and it's no good. I want to hear the feedback. We'll make changes as we can and build on this tool. So, again, please have a look at it. Let me know. Give me feedback. It's a brand new tool, so I'm interested to hear that. So I did skip forward just then. The other thing I wanted to just quickly touch on is we also have, once you've done that training, you might want to see how you're doing as compared to other people in the industry. So we have a database. It's called a safety benchmarking database, and you can put in information and then compare your workers' comp information, your OSHA, basically simply your OSHA 300 forms. Just upload that information to the site, and then you can compare yourselves to other people in the industry. Now, this is totally confidential. You're not sharing information. Nobody sees information about you as a company. They don't know who it is. It's aggregate data that you compare yourself to that people see. And it's actually held, so even less concerned, it's actually held on a third-party site. The National Pork Board doesn't have access to that information either. So it's held completely separate to us. So we can't see individual company data at all. Nobody can see that. But you can go in, have a look at your numbers, and then compare yourself to other people in the industry. I think that's a pretty good tool to, just am I doing a good job or not? I don't know. And you can see, and you can break it down into farrowing. You can break it down into different admin areas, all the aspects of pig production. You can put in that information and then compare yourself. So this has only been used fairly recently, and we've just actually revised the website. So go ahead, please have a look at it, sign up. There is a demo site if you want to have an idea of what it's about. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to contact me, and I can help you through the process of getting that information in. But I think if we can get some good numbers in there, I think it's going to be very useful for the industry to be able to compare some really good data. And at the end of the day, it also helps us to identify some of the areas where we should be perhaps spending some money on research and our check-off dollars. So it'll be useful for us in that respect too. So this is just a quick example of what you would see on the website if you were to compare yourself. In fact, this is from the demo site. So this is from the live site. So my data is blank because I don't have any numbers. So that's taken out of the equation. But you can play with it. There's quite a lot of information there. It's just a very brief example of the type of information you would see. And you can print that out, pull that off, and use it for presentations as well if you wanted to compare or use that information with other people.
How long has this been going?
So we started it, I think it was before I actually started the Pork Board, it was developed. So that would have been at the end of 2014. We did some trial people. I think you guys were involved in the initial trial stuff with it. We got some feedback, so we made some changes to it, hopefully made it easier to put the information in. Just made it much more user-friendly, I think. So it's now been revised and ready to go again. But again, if it's not perfect, we want to hear feedback, and we can work on that again. We're open to suggestions and opportunities. But I think it's at a pretty good point right now. We're comfortable putting it out there, making everyone aware of it, and inviting everybody to have a look at it and see if it fits your system and perhaps use that information.
How many employees are in it?
How many employees? Yeah. Oh, employees I don't know.
Is it based on salary?
Because you can compare injuries per 1,000 pigs. I can't remember. There's so much information you can compare on there. So it doesn't actually give you the employees' numbers. So so no one's going to look up there and say, "Oh, that's a big farm. That must have been, that must be Christians or something." You can't see that information.
How much of the industry is in?
So we have 28, I think, are signed up right now. Okay. Yeah. So companies of varying different sizes using that tool right now. Again, some of those were the originals, so I'm not sure how many of those at the moment are actually have put in data recently. I haven't checked, but the information is there. So again, it's only as good as the data that goes in, like every tool, like every database like this. So if we can get more people involved in using it correctly, we're going to have some really good data here. That's very useful to compare yourselves. The other tool, I'll just give you a brief outline of the environmental sustainability tools, taking a little bit of a shift away from safety. But there was a call for a very similar type tool that focused on the barn level worker in the barn being aware of the environment and the impact they can have on a daily basis and doing their tasks that can affect the environment. So it includes things like, in fact, it includes those topics. So it gives an outline of the concerns and the awareness we should be having about the environment, a little bit of understanding about the carbon footprint of the pork industry. It, of course, talks about odor, feed management, manure management, mortality management, all those things that on a daily basis a barn worker in the barn can have an impact. So how are they handling mortality every day? Are they making sure they understand why they move mortality out of the barn quickly and move it off the farm quickly and keep the rendering bins clean or put it in the composter or whatever? So just so they have a little bit more understanding and the impact that it has, not just on their farm, but on the environment around them. And, of course, when you think about things like odor, nuisance odors and things like that, it's quite important that we should be thinking about that and getting the people on the barn every day thinking about that. And just simple things like walking past a nipple drinker that's leaking. How much water is being wasted? How much impact is that having on the lagoon? And why should I care about that if I'm on the farm? That's nothing to do with me. That's somebody else that gets rid of all that. But hoping to get them to understand the impact that they can have. So this is another tool. We've used a very similar format again. Very flexible, short chunks of learning, very simple stuff, very simple language, simple pictures, very visual. And these are just some examples. We're just working on the video content right now, so I don't have that available. But these are the PowerPoint part of some of the topics. So again, you can see where they are in the program. Very visual, just simple pictures, simple text, to give people an idea of what they should be thinking about. Lots of photos, again, in-barn realities, good stuff like that. And that was snow in the dead pit, by the way. So when we think about training, it's extremely important. We have to really think about the employee that we're training and the message that we're trying to get across and understanding their learning styles. We have to think about that some people like to see things. Some people like to hear and they pick up information by hearing it. Some people like to be hands-on and touching stuff to make it happen. So we try to incorporate as much of those three elements in the training as we possibly can. We're obviously training to a wide audience, different styles, and we have to try and meet those learning needs. So we've really moved away from the lecture-type training, moved to that simple chunk training that fits in with the farm system, as well as the learning styles of the employee. Then the third step, once you've done that training, you're not done. It's not check-the-box training and we're okay, everything's good, and that's it. I can say we're going to be safe on our farm. It doesn't work like that, sadly. There's a little bit more that we have to think about. And that third part is the farm culture. We have to think about that barn culture. So who in that picture sees a supervisor telling an employee not to step over a gate? Thank you. Okay, who in that picture sees an employee telling a supervisor not to step over a gate? It could be either, couldn't it? I don't know the answer to that. But the point is, we have to give our employees the opportunity to say stop. If it's a safety issue or something that's going to cause a problem to the environment, the employees need to feel comfortable that they're able to speak up. That's the first step of a culture, a good culture. Can your employees ask questions? You have to ask yourself. I mean, truthfully, can your employees ask a question if they're not sure? Do your employees have the opportunity to say, stop, that's not safe, to anybody? If the regional manager comes in and doesn't put his safety glasses on, does the farm employee have the authority to say, hang on, stop, you need your safety glasses on? It's important. That's what sets that true safety culture. If you have a regional manager that doesn't wear safety glasses and refuses to or doesn't think it's important for him, that creates a message to the employees on the farm. So we have to make sure that's part of the culture. And then finally, do your employees have the opportunity to bring ideas? Can they make suggestions to you? Is there a format, a way for them to communicate with you and tell you what they think the hazards are and what the challenges are and why that protocol you've put in place probably won't work it seemed like a nice idea in the office, but really, practically, we need to change it. So do they have that opportunity to bring those ideas? And then finally, if they do you listen? Or is it just something yeah, okay, and then forget about? It's important that we're able to listen to what our employees are telling us when it comes to particularly safety and environmental issues. That's the kind of thing that makes it a good culture that's going to be productive, not only a safe culture, but also a culture that's productive and performs well too. It has a payoff, a second payoff. Does anyone remember does anyone here smoke? Still, do you remember that that first time you took a cigarette, you smoked a cigarette? Did you want to throw up and it wasn't very nice when you were coughing and it was pretty horrible? But you did it because your friends made you do it. You thought it was the cool thing to do, so you stuck with it because it was cool. We still do that as adults sometimes. Maybe not quite as stupid as that, but we do some things like that as we grow up. When we're in a work environment, if you feel like the environment tells you, your peers tell you, it's not macho to wear safety glasses. You know, they don't look cool. Or you wear them backwards, or you wear them on the top of your head because that looks much more cool than it does wearing them on your face. That sends a message, and that creates a culture, and you end up doing stupid things like that. Or wearing your ear muffs backwards because, you know, that's why I wear my headphones. Why can't I wear my ear muffs that way? But you're creating a culture, an unsafe culture, if you allow that stuff to go on. So you have to be aware of what's happening and what that culture is. A couple of things I just wanted to add in the end here is that you also need to be prepared. So when sometimes some things do happen, do you have an emergency action plan? If someone does get injured, what is going to happen? What do your employees know what to do? Who to call? Who to contact? Just so you know, there are a couple of forms, simple things that we have at the pork board to make that easier for you. There's one that's a printable one that's in the PQA book. And then there's a more complex one, more detailed one that you can actually access online and work your way through and put the information in and then print it out. So again, make sure you have an emergency action plan in place just in case. And that applies not only to safety but to environmental issues too. And a farm level crisis plan, again, available at pork.org. This really applies to if something happens, who communicates with who? If something happens and the local media gets involved, who does that communication to the local media? And who do we need to contact? And that helps you work through that process. It's a really good tool if you've got time to sit down and work through that. A lot of people are starting to use that tool just in case, because stuff does happen. Unexpected times. And then finally, I just wanted to add this in the end. If you haven't signed up for the pork alert, pork crisis text alerts, you might want to think about that too. That's an industry system that we hopefully will never have to use, but we will if there's a crisis in the nation that's related to the pork industry. You'll get a text alert. We'll test it twice a year, but other than that, hopefully we'll never need to use it. But it just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, and I think you have a thing on your seat somewhere telling you about that. Hopefully you pick that up. So just put that in, and it'll let you know what's going on. So quick summary: 3 steps: care, train, and then safety culture, culture, barn culture. The 3 steps to avoiding that disaster. If you've got those in place, you minimize your risk of a disaster. So what questions, comments, smart remarks do you have at this point? Any comments? I do have swag for anyone who asks a good question. Is it going to be a good question? I'm sorry, I can't.
The pork crisis thing, what would you expect to get? What is that?
So if we had, for example, a foot and mouth outbreak on a farm. So you might, if we have a foot and mouth outbreak somewhere in the United States, it might be useful for you to know that that's happening, and then you can take protective action accordingly. I don't know. It depends on what your situation is. It may affect you. It may not. It may be a regional thing, or it may be something that's a national issue. Does that answer the question? It's that type of scale.
Understand the level of.
Yeah, it's very high level. It's not. We're not going to.
Would it communicate outbreaks of things like PD?
It could do if we get a new outbreak of PD. Well, that's probably not so much because we've had that's ongoing, I guess. So that's probably not such a big deal. Yeah, that's perhaps not so much that one, but something that's more of an impact. Some foreign animal disease that we've not experienced in the country before. That type of level. Yeah, we certainly don't want to bombard people with unnecessary texts. We're very aware that that's not a good thing to be doing. So we hope we never have to use it, but we do want to be able to communicate with people very quickly if there is something that's big that's going to impact us. Yeah.
Is everything that you have bilingual?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So it's all Spanish and English.
So if you look at it, it's together, or you have to get two separate?
No, the employees. Yeah, they're actually. Employee Safety Toolkit, there is a Spanish section and an English piece. So the videos of narration is done in Spanish and in English.
You can't do them together, you'd have to show them.
You would have to show them separately. Yeah, yeah. So the knowledge checker, it's all printed on one page. So a manager would know what they're talking about if they're communicating with a Spanish-speaking employee.
Yeah.
But as far as actually watching a video, it's purely in Spanish or it's purely in English. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes.
How this is tied into QA in some fashion, or that's like done more formal auditing, tracking kind of things?
So so PQA, obviously, I think everybody in here is probably PQA certified, but the PQA is obviously tracked and we renewed every few years and is ongoing. But we have not done that with the Employee Safety Toolkit. It's completely separate from PQA.
But is there any plans for like how to? Because part of the thing is people can say they're aware of these things and they take the toolkit home, but how do you? It's a balance of enforcing compliance, but making sure that they do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and that's something we at the National Pork Board don't have any control over. We don't want to keep track of who says they've done it and should have done it. In terms of the Employee Safety Toolkit, we hope for people like the insurance companies and organisations themselves will help push that, make sure people verify that people have actually done the training and done what they've said they've done. This is really a training tool to assist people, to make it flexible, to get the information out there and hopefully reduce injuries that way. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So the follow-up question.
Yeah.
After running this, how long has it been running?
The original toolkit was done in 2003, but this new toolkit has literally been launched this week.
Are there plans to do some sort of assessment saying injuries have gone down?
Yes, absolutely. So we work with the University of Minnesota, and they'll be tracking. I'm doing some surveys as we go forward to track who's using this and the impacts on injuries and things like that. Yeah, we'll definitely do some follow-up, and yeah, we want to know if it's actually working or not. Absolutely. And we'll be doing, in fact, we've put this out to some producers. We've been out to a few individual larger producers already, and we'll be following up with them to make sure they've implemented, help them implement the program. And if they haven't implemented it, we can make some changes so that they can implement it. Any other questions? Sorry, I missed you at the back there. Yes?
The We Care program pretty much implies all producers abide by that. And yet we do have producers that don't care. And at times they do things that aren't in compliance with the We Care program. And once in a while they get caught.
It happens.
What are we doing to protect the integrity of the We Care program when we imply that all producers abide by it?
Yeah, and you're right. We hope that everybody is implementing and committed to the We Care program. The best that we can do at the National Pork Board is really promote it and work with people to make sure they understand that the reason behind it, the background to it. As far as actually regulating it or making sure people are doing it, unfortunately, that's really out of our control. I mean, has to be an element of trust that people are doing the right thing. We have to trust, and I know that's not a perfect world, but we have to do that. The more we can communicate, the more we can talk to people in groups like this and make people aware of the issues, I think the better off we'll be. But that's a very slow, challenging process, but it's really the best option.
We had a producer who pumped 100,000 gallons of manure out into a cornfield and publicly stated there's nothing wrong with what he did. Publicly stated there's nothing wrong with what he did.
So I guess the best way is to be a good producer, to get out, maybe get involved in the Operation Main Street program, and really talk to people and say, this is not who we are. There are some bad apples in the industry. There are bad apples in every industry. And that we have the opportunity to this is not normal. This is not right. We don't support this producer. This is how we do things.
But our We Care program implies that all producers do abide by it.
It does. We hope that the people will do. I mean, I don't know how else we promote that. To say some producers follow the We Care program. I mean, the intention is that everybody who is in pork production is a responsible farmer and producer and does the right thing. I know that's not the reality of the world, because that's not the reality of the world in any industry, unfortunately. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's the best. It's an understandable point.
I'm concerned that at some point the anti-livestock groups are going to get a hold of this and say the industry is saying one thing, but yet the producers are doing something different, and they don't match, so how can we trust anything the industry says? I think we're leading ourselves down a path that's going to be a dead end, and we're not prepared for it.
I think the Pork Board has very vocally stated that they don't support bad actors. You know, I think we've made that commitment and statement that we don't support bad actors, and they have done some things to back up We Care, like the panel, the animal welfare panel is huge. If there's a video or something where they've got the panel that will investigate those videos and say, okay, this is just a industry SO or procedure that's being put in a bad light, but really isn't bad, or this is something that they really need to address and fix. So we've got some of those things in place. The Pork Board doesn't have the authority to crack down on bad actors. Producers have to do that themselves and go to that person and say, hey, buddy, you know, shape up.
Can we get training for our state organizations so that they will do that and go to their bad actors instead of saying, I'm not going there, he can do whatever he wants, because we are ruining the integrity of our own programs by not addressing the bad actors.
Again, I think, as Diane said, I think it's really not. We don't have the authority to do that. I mean, we can do it the most polite way as possible, but we have no regulatory authority. We're not able to do that. We don't have that remit to be able to. At the end of the day, a producer can do whatever they want to do.